Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. The dust has now settled from our massive derby win on Sunday and we can move on to other things. Hopefully the next derby brings us as much lasting joy, but until then we've got a lot more to worry about. And that comes in the form of a Champions League group, which I feel like we've not even had the chance to speak about. So today we're going to deep dive into that group that we were drawn into on Thursday evening and look forward to what should be a very exciting Champions League campaign this season. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Tonight on my Twitter, I'm going to announce the giveaway to thank you all for 40,000 subscribers. So if you haven't already, make sure to jump over to Twitter, follow me on my new account at RyanStephenF2, and you can join in with that giveaway when it's all set up and ready to go. So thank you all, keep the support up, and let's keep rolling through this international break. Right then, we never really got the chance to talk about our Champions League group and have a good old chinwag about that because we have been so busy since that draw was done on Thursday night. We had transfer deadline day on Friday where Celtic were busy trying to get deals over the line. We had the derby on Sunday which we had to build towards and preview. And of course the aftermath of the derby, which has presented a complaint to the SFA. So we've not been short of conversation. I just feel like we've not really had the chance to talk about that Champions League group. One of the most exciting things that's happened in the past week. And it feels like it's almost just been and gone because of everything ever since. So today we're going to sit down and we're going to deep dive into that group. We're going to preview all three teams that we drew in the Champions League draw, and we're going to talk about our chances as we head into one of the most favourable draws we've seen in recent times. Of course, Champions League, it's not easy. It's called the Champions League for a reason. It is Europe's premier elite club competition, which means that it's never easy, no matter who you're facing, whether you're facing Real Madrid, Manchester City, or teams like Feyenoord and ones that aren't, you know, the creme de la creme of European football. It's still going to be difficult. But yeah, one of the most favourable ones. Everybody was really happy with the draw the other night. So yeah, let's talk about that. So here's a quick reminder on screen of the group that we drew on Thursday evening. These are the three sides that we will come up against this year in the Champions League. First off, Feyenoord, the Dutch champions from Pot 1. That was then followed by the Pot 2 side of Atletico Madrid. And then finishing it off for Celtic was the Pot 3 team of Lazio. Three teams who are, of course, very high up in the ranks of football history. Three big sides, big clubs with their own rich histories. But a group that presents Celtic a real good opportunity this season. Now, it's going to be hard to manage your expectations. And listen, Celtic haven't hit full steam. They haven't been the best, the final product, the polished product that we want them to be heading into this Champions League group. But it certainly is one that I feel like we can be optimistic about. We should be optimistic about. And we're going to talk about exactly why today. But that is the group that we, of course, drew. The club put this out this morning. The packages are on sale. You can grab your Champions League package if you're a season ticket holder for the very cheap price of £138, which works out at £46 per match. Of course, concessions and youth tickets are a little bit cheaper, but that's an increase from last year. I believe last year they were at £129, so they're up nearly a tenner. That's the story of football nowadays. Not cheap, £46 a game. Wow. Of course, if you're on the Home Cup ticket scheme, please keep in mind that that will come off automatically via your bank account for each game rather than the full package at once. But yeah, if you have missed that this morning, remember they are on sale now for season ticket holders. And make sure you don't miss out. So the big conversation of what everybody's asking heading into this is, where should we set our expectations? Where will Celtic finish? Will we finish rock bottom? Can we challenge for third? Or maybe, just maybe, we can dream and maybe push on a little bit further. I think it's a bit premature to get into all of that. I think we really need to judge ourselves in that next game. And then obviously Feyenoord comes very, very quickly at the Kuip in Rotterdam. But yeah, we're going to analyse each team one by one and then talk about that a little bit at the end. But I certainly think there is room for dreaming. Listen, every year we get into this same conversation and then we are dramatically let down when we finish rock bottom. But let's dream. Why not? We can do something this year. I have faith in that. And let's look at each team and why we should dream coming up against them. As Dean Martin once said, Arrivederci Roma, we are heading back to Rome. Let's start there with Lazio. We will once again be heading to the Stadio Olimpico in the Italian capital, a 73,000 capacity stadium. It's one of the biggest club stadiums in all of Europe, one of the biggest in the entire competition, and for the first time since 2019, Celtic will be heading back there to take on one of Italy's premier sides, and one we have quite a history with, to say the least. Lazio had a very impressive season last year in Serie A. They ended up finishing second in the league table, granted quite a distance behind runaway champions Napoli, but one of their best domestic campaigns in a long time, as they solidified themselves as the second best team in the country last year. And we're facing a Lazio side which you could argue is far better from the one we faced back in the 2019-20 campaign in the Europa League. Last year also made it to the quarterfinals of the Coppa Italia, the last 16 of the Conference League after finishing third in the Europa League. Their European success hasn't exactly been where they've wanted it to in the last few years, and that's a fact that Celtic should really take advantage of, just like we did a few years ago. Managed by the snout master himself, Maurizio Sarri, Lazio still have a really good squad. They have a lot of good players in there, despite losing a couple over the past couple of years. You look at the squad, and at the top end, you've got guys like Ciro Immobile, who's still there. They've just brought in Matteo Guendouzi on loan from Marseille, Mattia Zaccagni, who's a very highly rated Italian, and some younger guys as well, who've been obviously kind of bringing their way up through the ranks since the last time we faced them. They do have a very good squad. It's a squad that ultimately finished second last year, and they will be looking for revenge after we beat them twice. Yes, twice, just to remind you. Just remember that, twice we beat them in that Europa League group stage a few years ago. The big talking point this summer in regards to Lazio was the fact they lost Sergej Milinkovic-Savic. He was one of the players who took up a money move to Saudi Arabia. He moved for 40 million euros to Al Hilal, and he's been a real staple in that side over the past few years. Of course, he was there when we played them back in 2019. Losing him has definitely had an effect, and he's a tough player to replace, a player of significant quality. And with that money, they have tried to reinvest, but it's, as I said, hard to replace him. Let's have a look at their transfers. This is what they done in this year's window. Not, mega bucks being spent. The most expensive signing was Tati Castellanos from New York City in the MLS. They also brought in another couple of players. You can see there, Daichi Kamada, a fellow Japanese player on a free transfer from Eintracht Frankfurt. Luca Pellegrini has came in on loan from Juventus. A few names you might recognise, but ultimately, not outsiding absolute superstars, and with one that went out the door, you could argue they've not quite replaced them, and that's been reflected in what they have started their domestic campaign like. Not the best start to their season, however, a massive win at the weekend. They lost their opening two games to Lecce and Genoa. They lost both of those by 1 goal, which wasn't great. They started the season with 2 losses. However, we can't get things all that great, as you know, and they managed to defeat Napoli at the weekend, obviously current Serie A champions. They beat them in Naples as well, which is obviously the game that they'll be using to try and kickstart their season. So for as much as it has been a bit of a dodgy start, I think they sit somewhere like 12th in the Serie A right now. They certainly still have it in them to get the big results when they need it. Of course, there still is a few names that we'll recognise from the last visit. They've kept a good few of those players, the key one being Ciro Immobile, who scored against Celtic, of course. But aside from that, we know that we can beat them. We know that we can do it. When we won at the Stadio Olimpico, I believe it was the first time we'd ever won in Italy. So let's manifest that. The prime Lenny ball of 2019-20, I'm sure we can do it again. As for the run-in, before we take them on both occasions, we have a bit of luck with the first game. Before we take them on at Celtic Park on October 4th, they will have a very tough test against Milan of all teams at the San Siro. So hopefully momentum is down. Hopefully Milan put them on the ropes a bit for us to capitalise on. But before we take them on at the Stadio Olimpico, they face Salernitana, if that's how you pronounce it. They will take them on before we head over on the 28th of November. So one that's a bit more favourable for us, another which might set them up quite nicely. We'll just have to wait and see what the form is like. expectations, because it's Lazio, I want to beat them twice. But yeah, funnily enough, we have only faced them twice in the entire history of both clubs, competitively anyway, and we have won both times. So can Celtic keep a 100% record? We'll just have to wait and see. So one thing I've realised while editing this video is how long it actually is and how long I talk about each team. And for the purpose of attention spans around the world, I say around the world as if I'm like The Rock. But for the purpose of your attention span, I've decided I'm going to split this video into 3 parts. And over the next week, we will do the lowdown on both Atletico Madrid and Feyenoord in individual videos. I feel like that's a good idea. Also because it's the international break and I will struggle to find things to talk about. So it works for everybody, really. So yeah, that's part 1. That's Lazio, the pot 3 side. Next up, it'll be pot 2's Atletico Madrid. So make sure to come back for that. It'll be out some point this week on the channel. But aye, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I look forward to the Champions League this season. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.